We hit the trail on episode 144 of the Love in Lebanon podcast. Nat Lopes from Hilride Progression Development Group and city engineer Kevin Krulik join us to talk about Stone Eater Bike Park. Nat designed the course and recently flew into town from California to officially lay it out. We dive deep into what it takes to design a bike park and what Stone Eater will mean for our community. Episode 144 starts now.
Welcome to the Love in Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to loveinlebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Love in Lebanon podcast. I'm Joe LePage, the Community Development Director for the City of Lebanon. We're talking Stone Eater Bike Park in this episode. Got a couple of experts, a couple of guys who put in just a few hours helping to lay out Stone Eater Bike Park that'll be located just off of US 52 in Lebanon. We've got our city engineer, Kevin Krulik, but joining us, fresh from California, what landed yesterday?
Yep.
Oh, man. We've got Nat Lopes. He's the owner of Hilride Progression Development Group. Like I said, fresh in from California. How was the flight? How was everything? You're in town. Good breakfast. Ready to go?
It was decent. Definitely stoked to be here in Lebanon. Loving it, as they say.
Using the hashtag within the first 2 minutes, everybody. We know Nat is going to be a keeper here on the podcast. So if you don't mind, guys, and Nat, starting with you, what brings you to our lovely community that you are hashtag loving Lebanon?
I did a lot of work for the Griffin Bike Park in Terre Haute, Indiana, and that is kind of where the connection happened and where I ended up meeting Kevin Krulik for the initial discussions about Stone Eater, which 3 years ago now was described as maybe being a little mountain bike trail. And a fairly quick project. That really developed into a comprehensive plan and a project I think is going to be really important in this region. So super excited to be out here actually laying the flags down and about to get the construction rolling. So super stoked.
And the process of laying the flags down, what does that entail? You have a plan for the trail, and you're kind of putting down flags of where turns and different things are? Is that how that kind of lays out?
Yeah. So whenever you design a trail, especially trails that are more technical, you want to do a design and layout process. And so the first step of that is usually walking the land, doing exploration, and coming up with a conceptual plan. And once you have your concept plan for this project, Kevin has spent the last 2-3 years navigating IDEM permitting process and basically gaining approval for the project. And now that we have approval, it's really ground truthing those conceptual plans and really making sure that the final trails really maximize the available terrain and landscape and features that are out there on the site. So it's really the process of ground truthing and literally tying high visibility flagging in the trees about every 15 feet to mark the corridor so that it will coordinate and streamline construction so everyone knows where clearing needs to happen, grading needs to happen, and those flags typically stay in the trees till the end of the construction process, and kind of the last step is pulling them out when the trail is complete.
Well, everyone, Nat seems to sound like he knows what he's talking about, like he's done it before maybe. Kevin, what was it about Hilride Progression and Nat that kind of attracted you to work with the city for this little short-term, easy to complete mountain bike project here in Lebanon?
Wow, I would not
sarcastic font there.
Short term, it's been since 2019 the vision sort of started forming, and then 2020 and a lawsuit and a worldwide pandemic and
it's just a few small things, bumps
2 years. Yeah, it's been a lot, but we are here. But how did we get started? Really, it started with a phone call to our local Hoosier Mountain Bike Association, who said, I think a sweet spot that we're missing in Indiana is youth racing. And there's this new group that's just formed in Indiana called NICA, I think you should reach out to them. I went to the Epic Mountain Bike Festival down in Brown County that year in 2019, and NICA had a tent. And the people that were running NICA at that time were all from the Terre Haute region, well, primarily from the Terre Haute region. The executive director, Margaret Baroscus, was from Terre Haute. And she said, well, you got to come see Griffin. I hadn't seen Griffin. You got to talk to Nat, the designer. And, I think really it was those early conversations and those early partnerships that led us to HMBA, to NICA, to Hilride Progression Development Group, and to Nat Lopes, and it's been a wild ride ever since. But Nat's resume speaks for itself, and not just Griffin, but this gentleman works all over the country, all over the world, making great mountain biking experiences for people, and that's what we want to bring here, an experience for the whole family.
And Nat, if you can, what's it like to be able to provide this amenity for people all over the world? I mean, does it ever get old being able to go? Can you share some of the places you've been and things you've seen along the way, and your profession and what you do now?
Yeah, sort of stumbled into the work that I do now. I started off as just being a avid mountain biker. I ran cross country and then rode mountain bikes for fun. All through high school. I joined back in the day what was called the Redwood Empire Trail Assistance Group. So it was helping the rangers in the state parks in Northern California on mountain bikes. And that included getting certified as a docent. So learning about the natural history and then also being able to chase bad guys on mountain bikes and help with trail rescues and the rest of it as a young teenager. It was pretty fun.
You should have led with chasing bad
Yeah,
guys
I
on
didn't
the
know he
bike.
chased
Oh
bad
man,
guys. Wow, he's like a spy.
put that on a business card, dude. That'd be so good.
But that was really like learning about what parks are and how they're managed and being able to do ride-alongs with the rangers. It was super fun. I went to college at UC Davis. Made my own major called Design and Technology Studies, which weirdly really kind of set up for what I do now. And rode on the UC Davis mountain bike team, which was basically formed in my last year of college. So that was pretty cool, getting out on the collegiate circuit. And then after college, I worked for a component manufacturer and had the opportunity to work as a race tech for the Santa Cruz Sunrace mountain bike team. And that got me around a lot of the country to where all the UCI World Cups were happening, where the Norba races were happening, and got to see a lot of the cycling kind of industry world. And that was great. And then started working for the International Mountain Bicycling Association as was part of their Trail Care Crew program. And that was just absolutely incredible for that job. It required moving out of our apartment, selling our car, and going on the road for a 2-year assignment. And every 4 days we were in a brand new location all over the United States. So we actually spent 3 years doing that and eked out another year. And by the time that experience was over, we'd been to all 50 states, 9 Canadian provinces, and literally hundreds of mountain bike destinations all over the U.S. and worked literally with hundreds of land management agencies and thousands of IMBA volunteers from across the country. It was just totally amazing to see. We'd roll into town and folks would want to show us their best trails, the coolest swimming holes, tidal bores up in Alaska, volcanoes in Hawaii. And it was just nothing but stoke the entire time. So, and really got to see like the community, the national community. And then after that, did a lot of work, strategic planning for NICA actually, which was super exciting because, one of NICA's sort of mantras in the early days was a T-shirt that said, "I wish they had that when I was in high school." And
We have to bring that back.
yeah. And if it was really challenging as a high schooler to try to ride and race when there wasn't really a race circuit in California. Actually, the state parks pretty much shut down most of mountain biking really in California. Right in the 90s, they made all single track trails illegal overnight, and it really shut down the racing scene, and it was brutal. So to be able to work with NICA, and actually it started out as NorCal, just Northern California, and it really started at Berkeley High School, one single high school, one guy named Matt Fritzinger, who actually had traveled to Europe just out of college, and was on a couple kind of development race teams out there, and his experience was just so amazing. He wanted to bring that to kids in the U.S. And so he proposed to his math class one day, "Hey, maybe we should start a mountain bike team," and Berkeley High School did, and then very quickly several other high schools in the area wanted to have a mountain bike team, and then it was like, oh my gosh, we need to have a little league to race in. And when I got started with them, the goal was really to take this Northern California. It had branched at that point down into Southern California, and the Colorado League was wanting to come on and make it happen, and there was demand from all over the U.S. So it was really super exciting to put together a strategic plan, do a big fundraising effort that was really helped out by Specialized Bikes. The first $1 million funding for that, and launched the national. It wasn't NICA, it was NorCal League, and literally launched the NICA League. The NICA national movement, and our initial mission was coast to coast by 2020. Was our sort of pie in the sky. Yeah. Hey, that's what the impact we want to have. And now. 15 years later, true honor to be sitting with two NICA coaches for the Lebanon team here, and just see the tremendous impact that program has had. It's one of the fastest growing youth cycling, the fastest growing youth cycling program in the U.S. for sure, and seeing the quality of the student athletes that come out of the program, and really starting to have huge impact, like Kate Courtney, representing U.S. on the global circuit. She was actually awarded the Student Leadership Award 15 years ago by NICA for just how incredible an athlete and leader she was on her own team. So it's really amazing to see how it's spread, and NICA creates a lot of demand too for areas to ride. Really, in California, the areas that they can actually race are super limited. The leagues are so big out there; it's hard to find parking for 2,000 cars at a time. Wow. That also have nice access to trails. So it's been just a true honor to watch that grow and be able to create facilities that will help spur those young riders, make it fun for the coaches, parents, families to be able to really embrace the lifestyle. So I guess that was kind of a long lead in there, but it is I use it's kind of grandiose, but I use the example of Central Park in New York City a lot, because Central Park, when it its history is it was a marsh, it was dead flat, it was boring, and there was nothing there. And New York City was growing like crazy, turn of the century. Frank Law Olmsted, landscape architect, designed Central Park, built Central Park, and to think of the impact that small piece of land in the middle of New York City has had for the citizens, the communities, is tremendous, and also like real, the most expensive real estate, the most valuable land is all around the park. And that phenomenon is the same no matter where you are in the country. So if you can create a park, if you can make it dynamic, if you can make it for the community, you're going to have a big impact that truly will last for generations. So.
And if you build it, they will come. That should be a movie line, a movie quote from something, I think, right? Everybody, you've been listening to Nat Lopes. He's the owner of Hilride Progression Development Group, and also Kevin Krulik, our city engineer here on the Love and Lebanon podcast. So, Kevin, I kind of been side-eyeing and watching you kind of take in all the adventures that Nat has been sharing. So all the great trails and being able to be in all 50 states and up into Canada. Hey, Hawaiians say, hey, come look at our trails near these volcanoes. And then we bring in Nat to a former landfill in Lebanon, Indiana, where it's relatively flat. Yeah, how big of a win is that for our area to be able to have someone who's seen and done it all, quite literally, making up his own major and being able to have that be his life and doing great things with it? What's that like to have that here?
It seems so inadequate and inappropriate to call him up and say, hey, I got a landfill. I think we could build a mountain bike trail on. When you're talking to a guy who's been to the tops of mountains and volcanoes, and we don't have that kind of terrain around here, but we have some available land, and we have a very strong and growing mountain bike community, and I think this part of the metropolitan area of Indianapolis is kind of underserved, and we think with the location of centrally located in the state, this is really going to be a hub for riding activity for NICA. But in the other 360 days a year, this is just going to be a great park that's going to draw people in with new active living amenities for the whole family. We've designed a trail system that we think can challenge everybody from a 3-year-old on a Strider bike to expert level mountain bike riders, and we're excited Nat's here. We're excited to get the trail flagged out and construction starting in the spring, and there's a lot going on there. But I never would I have thought we were doing this if you would have asked me this 5 years ago.
And part of what we're doing here, everybody, is kind of an education piece. We do a monthly video series, and we've been kind of giving the status updates of Stone Eater Bike Park and how that process has continued. The growth of mountain biking in general, we're going to kind of throw this question out in the middle. First, Kevin, I want to start with you. How have you kind of seen it grow and be more mainstream? Because as Nat has shared, this began in Northern California, more or less, having some kind of organic conversations leading to mountain bike teams and things like that. But how have you seen it grow, not only with NICA, with Lebanon in Indiana, but then Nat also, how have you seen it kind of grow as more of a mainstream sport now, where it's an Olympic event? We had the last video that we showed had the folks from Pump Tracks, and they designed the courses and for some of the riding events that took place in the Olympics. And so how have you seen it grow since kind of having that initial thought of maybe this old landfill here that's kind of overgrown with stuff, maybe this could be one of those amenities that you may have seen and that Nat has worked on?
Yeah, I think, probably I got to point back to NICA. When we first started this, NICA was just coming into existence in Indiana. They didn't even have races that first year. And now, I think there's 150 kids that are showing up for a race now. And that's been growing since they opened the league, and the league keeps expanding. Teams keep joining the league. Kids keep getting more involved. Families are more involved. It's a very, very cool atmosphere and vibe if you've ever been to a NICA race, and I know you have. Mm-hmm. It's a really, really neat community that cares about each other, cares about the trails and the places that we ride, and it's neat. But I also, you love, we get people reaching out to us through social media channels and all other channels, just saying, hey, I hear you're building something on the northwest side of Indianapolis. I can't wait. I'm tired of driving. It's going to be right in my backyard, and they're excited. I think some of the most far-reaching Facebook posts we've made as a city are have to do with Stone Eater, and that's great to see that there's that much interest, people wanting these amenities.
So it's a growing thing, and Nat, if you can kind of help lend perspective, there are communities now. I mean, it's not football and basketball, baseball, your main, your track, all those things. This is something that's off the beaten path, quite literally. But there are now communities throwing out Bentonville, Arkansas, that are built around mountain biking. You can throw in a trail anywhere that it can be built. How have you seen it kind of grow from the humble beginnings of NorCal to kind of where we're at now, where the flyover country, the Midwest, the flat regions like Indiana, like an old landfill in Lebanon, are able to then add some pretty cool features that people from all over are going to want to come into our community, experience it for the first time, jump on a mountain bike and ride it?
Well, the National Recreation and Parks Association has some really compelling data, and combined with the National Recreation Participation Study that gets done each year by the Outdoor Industry Association. And so if you look at that data, and just for kind of some reference, more people, or the average age of a mountain biker in the United States is actually 40 years old. So that means that it's really a core and mainstream sport. More people mountain bike than play soccer, most of the ball sports. And yet when you look at any town, you're expected to have a soccer field. You're expected to have a baseball field. In fact, the National Parks and Recreation Association, they have a table that says if you have 50,000 people, you should have X number of tennis courts, X number of soccer fields. But mountain biking is not on that as a list of amenities for communities to provide. But if you use the participation metrics, it suggests very clearly, given the 3.4% national participation in mountain biking, off-road cycling, it suggests that there should actually be 17,000 bike park and bike riding facilities developed across the country to meet the existing need.
Sounds like we might have a ways to go with that. Right?
So there's when I was like, am I really going to do this as a career? That was really helpful in supporting data, and really that is being borne out on the ground with how communities are really working to meet the need, which is what the parks departments are supposed to do. In terms of NICA, some of the really I had a chance in the strategic planning that we did in the early stages to do a lot of surveys and try to get some good data to go for more fundraising and sponsorship. And some of the really compelling stuff out of that was NICA athletes that participated for 1 year. By the end of that first year, 85% of them said they thought they would continue to ride for the rest of their lives. Now that is a huge lifestyle impact from participation. 75% of dads started riding again as a result of their child's participation. 60% of moms started riding again as a result of their child's participation. So in terms of a driver that just really exponentially grows the community, NICA is profound and has had a profound impact. When NICA went into Colorado, it was actually very controversial because a lot of the more rural teams were losing so many of their riders, so many of the student athletes were preferring and wanting to participate in the mountain biking programs that there weren't enough people anymore to field their football teams. And so it was this big kind of cultural shift as to what was what people wanted for their communities and what the younger generations were saying they wanted. So, there's definitely a big need out there. Using Bentonville as an example, kind of in two ways, the making a mountain out of a molehill aspect of this project on the landfill. Bentonville, it does not have the biggest mountains. It does not have 5,000 feet of elevation. And yet it certainly has become one of the major destinations in the United States out of a lot of hard work, a lot of, creative building, and really maximizing the landscape that they have available to them. I definitely love big mountain riding. My favorite ride in the country is hands down is the whole enchilada in Moab. It's a 5,000 foot descent over 27 miles through just incredible ecosystems and terrain. Big mountain riding is definitely heart and soul. But really, after traveling with IMBA and being in Iowa, being in Kansas, even being in Maryland, being in Tucson, seeing so many different areas, and seeing mountain biking happening with really low elevation, it just means you have to be more creative and really find where that flow is. And really, some of my in terms of sort of analogs to what's possible out at the Stone Eater site. The Fantasy Island Trails in Tucson was a kind of poster boy championed by IMBA for a long time. And it's a 17-mile trail system packed into 1 square mile of land. So very dense. Yeah. And basically it's a best example of open desert flow where you're basically, on your pedals at top speed, about 19 miles an hour, for the entire 17 miles, just apexing turn to turn, full flow state. And so, I think that's really what Stone Eater can be is fast, open, flowing, and really leaning into that. And so to be able to partner and have a builder like Pump Tracks USA come in and build that trail, I think is going to be fantastic. Obviously, they're able to lay down really clean BMX tracks, for example, for the Olympics. So being able to stretch that out to a 5 mile NICA approved trail system is I think it's going to be a tremendous resource for the area. Very accessible for a wide range of riders, and super fun. So I think it will have a huge impact.
And you talk about Kansas and you talk about Iowa; those are pretty flat states as well. So if Kansas and Iowa can do it, I think Lebanon, Indiana can do it. Everybody, we're here talking with Nat and Kevin here on the Love in Lebanon podcast. We're talking about Stone Eater Bike Park. And guys, I don't know if you had the classic NES, like the classic Nintendo, but one of my favorite games was Excite Bike. And one of the features you could you can make turns and you can make jumps and you can make all these fun things. Try not to wipe out and do the spinny. I may insert a sound here, a little sound effect. Is that kind of what making a mountain bike trail is like when you look at a blank canvas, like a former landfill that's got some things, but not a whole lot to work with to those of us that don't do it professionally? Is that how you guys saw it when you worked together, as something where we could do something like this here and we could do something over here? And you mentioned the Fantasy Island Trail, something that you could take from other mountain bike parks and incorporate here. How does that work where you see relatively flat land, former landfill, and be able to say, no, we can do this, and this, and make it a fun trail for people of all ages? How does that whole thing work?
I'll let Nat expand on this, but there is some terrain out there, especially around the perimeter of the site, that we're taking advantage of. And then we're building some terrain over the landfill with some of the imports that we're making. But I think it's really fascinating as you walk through the woods with Nat and you see how his mind works and how he spots where a trail can go. And it's not always the first thing that I would think of as I look at the woods, but after you walk it with him and hear him talk through his process, it's really fascinating to see how his mind works and how he can see the trail that's not there yet.
How does that play out in your mind? Just the fact that you've seen so many before, just you can kind of visualize how a rider might navigate areas or things that you can add. How's that work in your mind?
Yeah, that's one of the huge benefits of having traveled all over the country. I also videoed almost every ride that I did, which was
even the crashes. Are there any
oh yeah,
OTBs over the bars?
Okay. But so many, I would this was actually, I'm dating myself here, but this was like before GoPro was like really a thing. So I had actually made my own helmet cam, and it had a special bracket so I could film trail cam or lead cam.
Just like a VHS strapped to your
well, you had to have a lipstick camera, and it had to have a cord that attached to your video camera and a giant battery pack.
And just a little extra weight, maybe did a little bit.
Yeah, and I actually had fabricated the dorkiest chest pack that you've ever seen, so it all fit in this little chest pack on the front.
We may need to have some pictures of this on
and I literally rode with that the entire time with IMBA. And I literally filmed every ride for 3+ years, riding every single day. And there were so many pieces, the Kula rainforest in Hawaii, where these guys have been building these trails that are just absolutely insane. Just as an example, I would, because we were traveling so much and we were only in an area meeting with people and riding for maybe a day or maybe two. But I would have the footage, and I would have, I would basically each place we would go to, we would ride, film, and then I'd put together a little video. And then the next place we were at, I would share the video. And so it was this constant feedback and sharing with all these people, all these cool stuff I had seen. And every time I would go through that process, I would hear all these conversations or comments that I didn't really pick up on at the time. And it was kind of like having a more in-depth conversation with that person you met one time, and kind of spun out there. But really just learned a lot from that. And, you see something that's so fun to ride and you want to share that with other people. Silly stuff like there's a feature called a diamond, which is a skinny feature or a log ride. And it basically, you make a turn, and the fun thing about it is your front wheel takes a different path than your rear wheel. So the inside of the feature is actually, there's nothing there. It's negative space. And your wheels are going over two different lines. It's super fun, and like everyone that rides a bike should have a chance to see that one time just to see how it works, because it's very cool. So yeah, like certainly the inspiration for everything I've done is from that travel and seeing fun stuff all over the place. Kevin was minimize the amount of work that's gone out there with the comment about we're bringing in some dirt, because I've had the chance to work with a lot of different cities, at this point literally hundreds of cities, counties, municipalities, state parks, even national parks, and Kevin as a leading this project from the start, and the tremendous endurance, tenacity, and persistence that he's had to put into this project to make it happen through lawsuits, through the IDEN permitting process, and then bringing in dirt, which includes what will be over 100,000 cubic yards of dirt, which is 120,000 cubic yards of dirt, which is how many trucks is that, Kevin?
A lot. I'd have to get a calculator out.
It's over 2,000 end dumps, if you can imagine that much dirt coming into a site. So we are definitely making a mountain out of the molehill at this site. But the typical process is you're queuing off the natural terrain. Most of the time, IMBA's concept is really sustainability. So looking for the contours, avoiding fall lines, really reading that landscape. There is nice forest and woods on this site. So really kind of not just using the major trees and the natural resources as objects or obstacles to go around, but really also trying to showcase the forest and the great mature trees that are out there as part of the experience is really what it's all about. And then the areas where we're building the landscape ourselves, and bringing in all that dirt. There's a opportunity, really unique, which is what's exciting about this project. Like the opportunity to build from the ground up in a blank slate, and build the exact trail and the flow that you want is super exciting. So, again, that desert flow and Fantasy Island and being in that top ring, 19 miles an hour, just flow state from beginning to the end. I'm really hoping that is what comes out and people feel, because it'll be irresistible, and you'll finish your lap and you'll just instantly drop in for the second one and go all day. So.
Oh, man, I cannot wait. Everybody, we're talking with Nat Lopes. He's the owner of Hilride Progression Development Group, and Kevin Krulik, our city engineer. And guys, let's kind of wrap it up. Let's land the plane with kind of a timeline, what happens now. And so after we not hit record, hit the stop button here, you guys are going to be spending some time. Nat, you're in town from Cali, out at the bike park doing some flagging and things. We talked with Pump Tracks on the video series. You can find that on YouTube, everybody, if you haven't already, with the Pump Tracks folks. When do the big machines come in? And you guys were sitting down telling me some good news about John Messenger dedicating one of his dedicated employees out to the bike park, and there's some excitement there. A lot of excitement building. When does a trail process the actual big machines come in to do that? And when can I drop in and ride this thing?
Well, the big machines are really out there right now. That process of moving in, we moved in around 70,000 cubic yards of dirt over the summer, really to perfect the landfill drainage and to provide some compacted material. And then now, the last 2 weeks, we've been bringing in another 50,000 cubic yards of dirt, and that should wrap up in the next 2 weeks. And there's really heavy equipment out there right now doing that. We've also done some initial prairie grass seeding. We're working on reestablishing our fences. The trail building contractor, Pump Tracks USA, will probably, they could be here at any time, but they basically have to have the trail completed by August of next year. They will primarily do that with very small pieces of equipment. This is, we want to be respectful of the forest, as Nat said, and working within it. So there's very little clearing that would have to be done for this work. But that's what the goal we're at, is trying to finish this mass earthwork project, procuring materials for feature building. Most of that's already on site. There's still a few more things coming in, some other materials that Pump Tracks will utilize. Be here sometime this winter into the spring, building through the summer, and done and out of there by August. And then we'll have some time to get some additional seeding done, and lawn seeding, prairie grass seeding, things of that nature. And then we are tentatively looking at a soft opening in the fall, and we are already tentatively on the schedule for NICA to hold an event here next fall. They've got a backup plan just in case our seeding doesn't come to germination like we would hope. I'm not so worried that the trails won't be rideable, but to bring in people as spectators for that event, we need a solid stand of grass for them to be on and not making things a muddy mess in the late fall. But that's the plan. We would have trails to ride late fall, have our first NICA event next this late fall 2024, and then going into 25, there would probably be another NICA race in the fall, and possibly an early season NICA tune-up event out there also.
Very cool. Very cool. Nat, gonna end it here with you. Do you, once you complete a trail, do you bring your bike in? Do you drop in and hit it just to make sure it's everything you wanted? And how gratifying is that to be able to help a community like Lebanon get to the finish line with a trail, and then being able to ride it, to just kind of feel like, yep, it left it better than what it was, certainly.
Yeah, it's always a little bittersweet, because you spend so much time getting the project up and running, all the way from concept to pushing all the way through, and then it finally gets built, and it's that bittersweet moment where it's kind of the last time I see it in that same way. I live in California, so Indiana, it's rare when I get out here, so it's definitely a sweet moment to be able to see it come together. to see the community come together and start to use it. But it's also a bittersweet moment. The project's kind of over. And most of the time, I think, I really wish I had this in my neighborhood right down the street from me, as opposed to halfway across the country. Because, all these places that I'm involved with getting up and running, I'd love to be able to ride on a daily basis. So I'm, of course, glad for the communities to be able to have that. But it's always a little bittersweet.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Guys, thank you so much, first off, for all the work you put into it, and a preemptive thank you for all the work you're going to continue to do to kind of bring this all the way home. Really appreciate you being here on this episode. Great insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
And
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Love and Lebanon podcast. More episodes are coming your way soon. Now, you can stay up to date with all the things that are taking place at Stone Eater Bike Park on the Stone Eater Bike Park Facebook page, but also on the City of Lebanon YouTube channel as well. We talked about the monthly video updates. We're getting ready to interview Kevin and Nat later on today. It'll air later on, beginning of December, actually. So you'll be able to see them as they're going through and doing some of the things that we've been chatting about. So all those things are online for you to stay up to date, stay informed, and get ready to ride. Take care, everybody.